1971, this was before Microsoft, before Apple came on the scene, before Facebook or Twitter or even TikTok. 1971 saw this incredible technological feat that changed the world forever. In 1971, plastic eggs were invented. Do you remember on the screen? Do you remember plastic eggs? Yeah, you remember them, because you know what happened in 1971 when those eggs were introduced? It changed Easter egg hunting forever. See, because before that, in 1970 and before, you had to hunt for hard-boiled eggs that were dyed. And then when you collected them, your prize was you went home with hard-boiled eggs that sat in the sun possibly, and then you made egg salad with them. And that was the prize. But in 1971, plastic technology caught up to our desires. And we had plastic Easter eggs. And every 7-year-old knows that inside a plastic Easter egg, you will find candy. Exactly. Thank you for those of you who are participating with me. See, before 1971, all we did was hunt with eggs, and that was our big prize. But in 1971, these larger than eggs came into existence, and it changed the world. So in 1972, I was 7 years old. And Mr. Colt, our Sunday school teacher, yes, that was his name. And 50 years later, I still remember this. It was 1972, and we knew that plastic eggs were coming on the scene. And that meant that we weren't just hunting for hard-boiled eggs, we were hunting for plastic eggs, and we knew plastic eggs always have candy. And so we were excited about that, looking forward to it. And Mr. Colt decided to send all of these eggs out into the cemetery because we had a church cemetery. And what better way to have an egg hunt than in a church cemetery? And so the eggs were littered all over. And then Mr. Colt sent us out, letting us know that there were special gold eggs out there. And he sent us loose onto the cemetery. Now, this was before parenting today. In 1970s, your parents dropped you off at the church and let you do whatever it is you felt like doing. And so Mr. Colt was stuck with us, and he just let us loose, literally let us loose. And this egg hunt turned into a brawl. We were hunting, we were fighting, we were attacking because the gold eggs were different. The gold eggs were better than what we had always been hunting for, and we couldn't wait to get them. Eventually, he called us back inside. We licked our wounds, and then he told us that if you had a gold egg, you got to come to the front. And I had a gold egg. And so I went to the front with the other gold egg receivers, and we looked out at the rest of the losers. And then he said, "Open the egg." And he had carefully glued and taped it shut, so we were sure something good was inside. And we busted open those eggs, and they were empty. What kind of man are you, Mr. Colt, that you would give us empty gold eggs? And it turns out that he had some kind of lame story about the egg being empty and the tomb being empty as well, but we weren't hearing any of it. We were just wondering where the candy was. So I imagine that when I had so many people come up to me afterward and tell me stories about their plastic Easter eggs. It was great, but please don't give me any more. And yeah, so you know what? It's great to see you all. I'm glad you're here. If this is your first time, I'm glad you're here as well. Someone introduced themselves at the last service, and we're excited. It's great to have standing room only and people sitting on laps and all that kind of stuff, so that's exciting. I'm glad you're all here. And I sat here, and then I got moved to there, and then I got moved further on, and I thought I was going to be in the parking lot, and someone was going to have to let me back in because I kept getting my seat pushed back, but Chuck did a great job, so thanks for Thanks for that. You know what? Just the same way that Easter eggs are meant to be filled, tombs are meant to be filled as well. And tombs are not supposed to be empty. So I would imagine that when Mary arrived on that first Easter morning and she looked into the tomb and saw that it was empty, it was not what she expected. See, because empty tombs are like empty Easter eggs. It's not what's supposed to happen. See, the body of Jesus was missing. It was empty. And Mary's assumption, her first thought, was not resurrection. Her assumption was that the body was stolen. You see, because a stolen body is more easy to believe and understand than resurrection. And so Mary's first thought was thieves had broken in and taken the body of Jesus. I know that to be true, that believing in a stolen body is easier than resurrection, because just rhetorically, don't answer me later on, I'll let you talk back, but right now just rhetorically imagine, how does a body resurrect? How does that happen? See, we know the whole story, but we don't know what happened inside the tomb. What was that like? I mean, did Jesus just slowly begin to wake up? Did his heart begin to beat and breath went into his lungs and he began to be revived in a sense? Or was there a gasp of air, like Jon Snow in Game of Thrones? Did he just like come back to life and like everyone's, all right? Was there loud noise and light, or was it soft and gentle? Did the resurrection begin to have the life blood flow so that his gray skin turned pink again? We don't know. And it's easier to believe the body was stolen than it is to believe in resurrection. And so Mary supposes there's been grave robbers, and she runs back to find Peter and John and the other disciples, and she suspects foul play, and she is sure someone stole the body. And John, the gospel writer, tells us that after he and Peter made a quick sprint to the gravesite, that they looked inside the tomb. And up on the screen, this is what John writes. He said, there were linen cloths lying there, and the kerchief used to cover his head, not lying with the linen cloths, but it was separate. It was neatly folded by itself. Then the other disciple, the one who had gotten there first. Now, John, when he talks about himself, he has no ego problem. He's the one that said, he doesn't use his name, and he said one time, the disciple Jesus loved, so he was pretty confident of that. He also says the other disciple when he's talking about himself. And then he wants to let us know this. He says the other disciple, the one who had gotten there first. So he wants to let us know that John's faster in a foot race than Peter. And John got there first. And he says when Peter got there, he went into the tomb. And then it says he took one look at the evidence and believed. And I got to ask, what evidence? It's like looking inside an empty egg. What did they see? It was empty. The body was gone, but there was evidence for John and Peter to believe. So we know that there were two men, Joseph of Arimathea, who was a wealthy civic leader, and Nicodemus, who was a Pharisee, and both of them were followers of Jesus. And we know that they took Jesus' body off the cross, or when the body was taken off the cross, they took it and they put it into a tomb. And because it was nearing the Sabbath, they couldn't finish the burial process. And so Nicodemus and Joseph of Arimathea put the body in there, knowing that others were coming back after the Sabbath, Sunday. And Mary and some others were part of that group that were coming to complete the burial process and finish preparing his body for burial. And John says that when Peter and he got there, that there was a kerchief that we used to cover his head, was not lying with the linen cloths, but was separate, and it was neatly folded by itself. And I find that to be an interesting piece of information for us on this Easter morning, that it was neatly folded by itself. Why did Jesus take the time to tidy up his grave clothes after being resurrected? Why would he take off the linen and throw them to the side, but take and fold neatly this kerchief? And what if this is the evidence that Peter and John saw? This neatly folded kerchief. Now, I want to offer a simple and unique perspective. I'm going to take a few minutes to share with you this idea. That the word kerchief is translated several different ways throughout the Bible, throughout the different translations. Sometimes it's translated as kerchief, sometimes it's translated as napkin or handkerchief or funeral cloth or wrappings. And one commentator suggested that what if it is a shawl, a prayer shawl, that all Jewish men would have had something like this. And it would have been, I got it upside down, forgive me. Good thing this is the second service because I'm going to preach a little bit longer now. And they would wear it over their shoulders like this. And it would be used for worship. It would be used for prayer time. In Hebrew, the word is talit, and it means little tent or little tabernacle because they would pray with it over their head, and it would help to focus their prayers on God. It had these tassels around the sides, and the tassels all represented something as they would pray. And Jesus would have worn one of these as a Jewish man in the first century. And the custom was that you would wear this shawl during worship, and you would not get it tangled like I'm doing now for you. I did so much better at the last service. You should have been here for that one. So there was a custom that this commentator suggested that when a person died, that the prayer shawl was placed over their face. And his thought was, what if that's what Joseph of Arimathea and Nicodemus had done, knowing that the other disciples would come back and finish preparing the body? And what if when Jesus was resurrected, he got up and he took the prayer shawl that was on his face and pulled it off? And then what if he neatly folded it? Now, why would that be important? See, all Jewish men carried these. They all had them with them. They either wear them or kept them with them. And when you were in someone's home and you weren't wearing it, you would fold it. And you would fold it in such a way that might be unique. You might fold it so that the colors were standing out so that you would know your prayer shawl from someone else's prayer shawl. Or you might fold it in a unique way that no one else folded so that you would know that this was your prayer shawl by the way that you folded it. But John says it was neatly folded by itself. And I imagine that's the evidence that Peter and John needed. That they went into the tomb, John hesitantly, Peter storming in. And they looked and they saw the linen garments on the side and they saw the prayer shawl. And they said no one would have folded it like that but Jesus. I imagine they would have thought there's no possible way that his body was stolen because no one stealing a body would take the time to fold a prayer shawl and to fold it in the way that our rabbi would have folded his prayer shawl. I imagine that they knew that if the body was stolen, there was no way the Romans could have come in and taken it because no one would have folded it the way Jesus folded it. And for Peter and John, this was evidence enough that Jesus must be alive. And for Peter and John, seeing was believing. You've heard that before, right? Seeing is believing. If you see something for yourself, you'll believe it to exist or be true, even if it's unusual or unexpected, right? So it's, I never thought, I never imagined, and then you fill in the blank, right? I never imagined that I would be pushed out of my seat on Easter morning, but seeing is believing. I never thought he would show up on time, but seeing is believing. I never thought he'd shave off his beard. I actually thought of doing that and then went, nah, not a chance. I'll do a lot for you folks, but not that. I never thought he'd shave off his beard, but seeing is believing. See, proving something is real or not is hard to do. It's hard to prove something is real. So we say, I can't believe it until I can see it. And for Peter and John, it would have been this. I never thought Jesus would rise from the dead, but I saw a folded shawl. Seeing is believing. You see, Easter is an event that's based on someone who was dead coming back to life. And I know that that's an event that invites suspicion. And we can sing the songs and pray the prayers and say the words, but at the same time we realize that that's something that more likely happens, it seems, in a zombie movie or in a TV show. Someone coming back to life. And so I'm sure that there are some, you may be here today and you're fulfilling an obligation. And you're looking forward to Sunday brunch or Sunday at the Masters. And someone rising from the dead fits better with a zombie movie than church for you. See, because belief in a dead body rising again creates doubts and suspicions. I was talking to some friends on Friday night. We were out having dinner together, and we were talking about Easter and the resurrection, and that it's a supernatural event, and our minds are bent toward doubt when it comes to the supernatural, when it comes to things that we can't explain, and we need to see it to believe it. And it was a great conversation, but also I recognize that there are things that we can't see, and yet we believe them every day, even though we can't see them. Like, I believe in air. I believe in it. I've never seen air. But you know what? I believe it. I believe it so much that my body just chooses to breathe it without understanding it. My body chooses to breathe it even though I can't see it, acknowledge it. I can't even affect it. But yet I choose to breathe it. Now, you may say, hey, I can't see it, I don't believe it, and you don't want to believe in air. That's fine. Hold your breath. Try it. I promise you, you may not believe in air, but your body does. And as when you pass out, your body will start believing in air, and you'll continue to breathe because we believe it, or we don't have to see it to believe it. It's the same thing with families. How do you prove that your children love you? How do you prove that your spouse loves you? You experience it and you believe it to be true. So if you're here with doubts, I want to say that you are in the right place. And you are here at the right time. Because Easter and the resurrection story is told for you. Here's how I know that. The statement, seeing is believing. You know, when you Google something, you never know what's going to come up. So I Googled seeing is believing, because I knew that that was what the message was going to be. It was going to be about seeing is believing. And I thought this was going to be someone from science said that. I was sure of it. And I Googled seeing is believing. It turns out it's attributed to the 17th century pastor. Let's hear it for the pastors out there. Yeah. Woo! All right. A 17th century pastor, Thomas Fuller. He said seeing is believing. And then he said this, but feeling is the truth. Seeing is believing, but feeling is the truth. So sometimes we need to see it to be true, and sometimes truth is an experience that we can't see. See, sometimes you can see it, sometimes you can't see it, but you know it is the truth. That feelings and experience can be suspect. I recognize that we can't just always lean on our feelings because it can be suspect and we need to be careful. But we also have to know that we can believe things to be true, not because we see it, but because we feel it. Your family loves you. You love your family. That's an experience. And you believe it to be true. You know it because you experience it every day. You feel an experience which leads it to seeing it to be true. There are times in your heart when you know what the answer is, whether or not it is something you can see. I remember the first time our church went to Haiti. It was in 2011, I believe. And there were about 20 of us went on a mission trip there. And we went because in response to the earthquake that had happened the year before. We went a year later. And there were about 20 of us, and all 20 had this same feeling, this same experience. We were sure that God wanted this church to partner with the orphanage in Haiti. The evidence was our experience. We couldn't see it, but we believed it to be true. We felt it to be true. And today, in the midst of what is still a country that has fallen, and there's gang violence, and there is a broken government, we still stand by and pray for and support the House of Abraham years later because of a feeling that we knew to be true. 2 weeks ago, there was a baptism here on this platform, and her name was Tian, and she said this, and I want to turn it into a t-shirt. She said, "I don't know what happened, but I know something happened." Man, I love that. That's faith. I don't know what happened, but something happened. I know that that's what happened in my life when I was 17 years old. I don't know what happened. I can't fully explain it even now, 40 years later, but I know something happened and my life was changed. See it. Seeing is believing, but feeling is the truth. You see, we, the church, we are in the supernatural business. Supernatural events, of course, lead to doubt and suspicion. In life, there's lots of things that don't fit into boxes, and explanations are not always available. And it leads us to wonder, what can I believe in? What is true and what is real? And we live in this culture where we are currently experiencing unprecedented disruptions in our world. And it seems dark, and it seems gloomy, and it seems uncertain, and there's seismic shifts economically and politically and socially that are taking place. And it leads us to question, what can I believe is real? What can I believe to be true? I want to offer something to you. A few decades after Jesus was resurrected, the Apostle Paul came on the scene. He came on the scene earlier than that, but a couple decades later, he wrote something to a church in the city of Corinth. And what he wrote was about the resurrection. And listen, he said this. He said, "Brothers and sisters, I want to remind you of the good news I preached to you." See, Paul had been there. Paul had been in Corinth, and he had developed this church and built this church up, and he wants to remind them, because he hasn't been there in years, this is what I told you then. What I received, I passed on to you. And then he says this, and it is the most important of all. It's the most important of all, Paul says, and here's what it is. Do you want to hear it? I'm going to tell you. Christ died for our sins, just as Scripture said he would. He was buried. He was raised from the dead on the third day, just as Scripture said he would be. And then Paul says this. He says, he appeared to Peter, even though John got there first. Peter gets the credit. He appeared to Peter. Then he appeared to the 12 apostles. And then Paul says this, after that, he appeared to more than 500 brothers and sisters at the same time. Most of them are still living. So Paul says, look, if you're not sure this really happened, I told you it happened. All these other folks know it happened, and they're still alive. Go find them and ask them. They had an experience. they felt it and it was real. They saw the living Christ after he had been resurrected. He says, after that, I said that. Yeah, sorry. And then he said, he appeared to James. He throws James in there at the end. I love that. And then he appeared to all the apostles. Last of all, he says, he appeared to me. He says, maybe seeing is believing for you, but I'm telling you, feeling is the truth. And he says, I was on a road, and Jesus met me, and it changed me, and he's alive. And then he says, so this is what we preach, whether I or the other apostles who preach to you, and this is what you believe. See, this is the message that was communicated to the world in the first century that led to exponential growth. Those first disciples, those first followers of Jesus, they didn't talk about the stories that Jesus told. They didn't talk about the miracles Jesus did. They talked about Jesus rising from the dead. They said, this is unique in history. It's never happened before. He was crucified, he was buried, and he rose again. And more than 500 of us saw it, and it's real. And that's what we celebrate on Easter. You see, we are resurrection people. The reason we gather, you can clap, I'm going to keep talking, but you can clap because that's good. See, because every spring, you get me jazzed up doing that. See, every spring, Easter brings us back to our roots. And our roots are that we are resurrection people. We are Easter people. This is the story that we tell. Seeing is believing, but feeling is the truth. And is believing that something is too good to be true is true. And it's seeing and experiencing the risen Jesus in our lives. And Jesus tells us that even the tiniest seed of faith is enough. Even the tiniest. And if we can have the tiniest seed of faith, it can grow and develop in us that we will discover that Jesus loves you. That you can discover that no matter where you've been, no matter what you've done, no matter what you've thought about God in the past, you are loved. And just the tiniest seed of faith, that you can know that even with all of your doubt, that tiniest seed is enough for Jesus. It's enough. It's enough. That for Peter and John, it was the evidence was a folded shawl. And that led to more experiences of seeing Jesus in their lives. And it changed them. Peter went from the one who seemed to bumble and fumble his way to a pillar of the church after the resurrection. It changed. So we have an Easter gift for you. The ushers are going to come up and they're going to hand these out. If you take them, I would suggest that it's a gift with a challenge. So it's a little folded piece of material. It's folded uniquely. And inside of it is the quote, seeing is believing, but feeling is the truth. And the ushers are going to pass those baskets. You can start passing them out. And if you want one, I encourage you to take one, but I say that you take it with a challenge. That you would ask God to give you a kerchief moment. That God would give you a folded shawl moment. That right now you say, I've got the smallest seed of faith possible, and I've got a lot of doubt. And I would say, let God use that small seed. And so I want you to enjoy your Easter brunch. I want you to enjoy Easter at the Masters, which is my plan for this afternoon. And I want to challenge you, though, don't let Easter Sunday be a one-and-done thing. The band's going to come up and we're going to sing a song. They're going to sing a song. It's a request that I made. Pastors get to make song requests, which is nice. And the lyrics to the song say something like this. It's a song we've sung before, but we don't sing this part It's kind of the Easter Sunday part, and we save it, I guess, for Easter Sunday. Get up, get up, get up, get up out of that grave. That's Easter. See, here's what I know, is I know that there's folks here and you're still living Friday. And it's dark and it's gloomy and it's hard and it seems corrupt and it seems broken and you don't know how you're going to get out of Friday. And I would pray that you would have a kerchief moment and you would know that wherever you've been, whatever you've done, God loves you. And that resurrection is possible. And that Sunday is possible. For some of you, you may be here and it's Saturday existence for you. That means God seems silent, God seems distant, God just isn't there. And you even question, is God around? I pray that you wouldn't continue to live in a Saturday existence, but you would know that Sunday is possible. And then there are others of us here, and we celebrate Sunday as a resurrection Sunday, and we know and we've experienced Jesus. I want you to know that Jesus changed my life. I have no doubt about it. I know that if he did it, and this is part of the song, if he did it for me, he can do it for you. And I know that he changed my life. But here's my challenge, is that how do I communicate that? How do I communicate a Sunday world to the rest of the world? How do I communicate my Sunday life to the rest of the world? And so today we celebrate an empty tomb. Seeing is believing, but feeling is the truth. Get up, get up, get up out of that grave.